Hello everyone, and I hope you're doing well. It's Donna here from Blind and Knitting. This is episode 28 and it is the 19th of May. Actually, I think it's probably this is the 21st of May. I don't even know what happened to February and March or April. They've just gone. 21st of May. So welcome to my podcast where I share all my knitting adventures. I am legally blind. I have a guide dog who will provide some snoring, no doubt, through this podcast. If you do hear snoring, it won't be me. It will be my guide dog, Kenzie. You are welcome to look for Kenzie. She has her own Facebook page called Kenzie the Guide Dog. So you're welcome to look for her if you want and suss out more. I do try and get her in this video, but she's just cruising. She's just chilled out down beside me here having a nap. So most of my talk is around my knitting, my crafts, a little bit of sewing when I get the time, my gardens. I love being sustainable. I love being able to take care of ourselves and our home and not depend on the big wide world. So we try and be as sustainable as possible and resilient because things are getting tougher, so we try and be resilient. So part of that has included my knitting and my crafts, etc. So I also have a degree in psychology, so I do try and bring some of that into my podcast as well, just to fill you in on how we learn, how stress works in our brain. My degree in psychology is around brain and behaviour, so it's really very much coming from what's happening up here and how we can manage that in our big wide world. So yeah, I hope you've had a great, I think it's been a month since I've done my last podcast. It's a bit like that saying, I'll be back in 5 minutes, see you in 10, and I'll hear you in a half an hour. My 2 weeks that I promised turned into 3 weeks, and now it's monthly. But hey ho, that's what it is. I don't care. It is what it is. It's been an incredibly busy month. In my work, I have my own business, which is called Motuoru Development, which is a team of social workers and development coaches that go out and work with people in the community and help them and support them, vulnerable people, etc. Absolutely love my job. I've been very blessed that the government think kindly of me and they give me contracts so we can work even more so out in the community. And so the last month I have been busy doing funding applications, writing contracts, etc. So it has been a lot. My blindness, I have retinitis pigmentosa, and to be honest, I've had a little bit of a decrease in that of recent. It has deteriorated some. It is a degenerative disease, so I, sometimes I feel like it's quite stable and sometimes I feel like it's not, and at the moment it's not very stable, so, it can go very up and down, which is quite a challenge. And I can't, I do try and brush myself off and be as, accepting and demure, I suppose, of it as I can, but sometimes it's just getting hard, and I want duvet days, and I have had a few of those. It's just been a tough month or so with my sight. One of my other challenges is one of my children also has the disease and she is going to lose her license, so I can see those impacts of the disease on my family as well, and because quite a few of us in the family have it. So yeah, most of the time I try and be as upbeat as possible, but at the moment I'm not. I feel like crap and it's tough and I just want to be real, so there I am. But knitting helps me. It helps me get through. It's such a saviour to my soul, so that's what we're here for, is to talk about knitting, although we're not only here for that. Mental health challenges, etc. as well. So what am I wearing? This is my FO. I have one FO, a finished object, and I absolutely love it. This is the Rubicon by, I'll just get the pattern. Rubicon by Erica Sulka. Forgive me if I'm not saying that right. Rubicon Point, that's the pattern. My printer, I'm afraid, was getting a bit low on ink, so it's not the best of photos. But what I wanted was the same as this photo. I wanted really pretty colour for the lace and something sort of patinaed and sort of old world for the plain piece, and sort of, yeah, I wanted the juxtaposition of, I know, huge word for today, God knows where that came from. I wanted the juxtaposition of the two, the old pewter look and the pretty lace. So Mariana from Strawberry Patches just donated me, she donated me the most beautiful 8-ply baby pink wool, which is that one. And I have no idea if you can see or not, sorry. So if you can, that's great. And I went to a workshop with Zsqw McDougall, who sells as a local indie dyer as well. Local as in New Zealand. I'm here in New Zealand. I'm in the lower North Island of New Zealand. So when I say local, I mean New Zealand, not specifically right in my region. And so I bought that wool. Neither of them had names. I think they were just individual ones from them. And I also brought from Diane McDougall, where is it? Look, I'm so organised. I'm disorganised. Here it is. This most beautiful mohair. And I thought it was a whim, one of those whim buys where you think, oh, I have no idea what I'm going to do with this. Sorry, I should have got this organised. Here we go. It's Aurora 100, and it's a thread of luxury. That's the logo, and it's the most beautiful soft baby pink. And so I thought, right, what I'll do is I'll sort of marry these two colours together with this, which I did. So I held these colours with this, and this is my Rubicon. So it's absolutely stunning. I just love it. It's exactly what I wanted. This is one that I started with a different coloured wool, and it just didn't look right with the pink. It just was too greeny, too goldy, too, you know, those autumnal tones. And I wanted something that was patina, sort of a rusty copper colour. And yeah, I think I've pretty much got it with this. So I can wear this with brown, I can wear this with cream, I can wear it with any sort of pink tones or burgundies. And I love the triangle bottom, the Rubicon bottom. Yeah, it was great. Really quick knit. Well, a really quick knit because I did a DK on, I think it was size 5 needles with held with mohair, so it was very quick, but it's just what I needed, something quick. I do struggle with lace and it's not perfect. You know, that's the reality of homemade stuff. You're always going to have, most of the time, mistakes and non-perfection, and you have to kind of get used to that. But hopefully you can see that. So thank you, Mariana. Thank you, Margaret from Zsqw McDougall. Thank you, Diane from Diane McDougall. Yeah, really happy. I must admit, my hair's not the kindest around my neck. For some reason, it's quite scratchy. But once you've got it on, it's fine. I'm going to buy a clasp that blends in with it here so that I can hold it there. But I have a dress that's almost identical colours to this, so I actually wear it just like a granny does, like that with this dress. And the comments I've had have been wonderful. Yes, I'm a nana, but you know, it's quite a modern take on an old-fashioned shawl, and I love it. Yeah, so I might get a bit warm later, so I will end up taking it off, but I'll leave it on for now because it's yeah, lovely. So that's my only FO, but quite proud of that one. I'm still, look, my whips, I'm still plodding along with my Birkin. I have made quite a bit of progress, so I will show you the progress I've had, but I'm not going to go into too much detail because I feel like I've shown it so many times. My Birkin, I'm absolutely loving this wool. It's just stunning. I'm really enjoying the feeling how it's knitting, and so I do savour knitting it. So but the other reason why it's taking so long also is it's brown, and I have so much trouble with it. I've really got to choose my days. A day like this when it's morning and there's a lovely sun out, yes, is perfect. But I finished the bottom. That's, if you don't know the Birkin, that's the Birkin there, colour work. I have finished the bottom. I have put the needles on for my first sleeve to get on with, and I'm going to do sleeves without decreases and puff them in at the bottom, firstly because it's just too hard to see this, but secondly I actually quite like that look, and I mean it's got pretty floral thing in it, and it's a lovely 4-ply, so I think it'll suit it as well. So that's one of the luxuries of knitting, is you can you know, swap around and things. So the yarn, just quickly, is Happy Go Knitties, Helene's beautiful yarn. It is 4-ply merino yak silk, and it's just beautiful. So I am still pottering on with my Birkin. I now have 2 sleeves to do, and because there's no decreases, they're just going to be round and round and round. But again, I'm not going to say that should be finished soon, because it is one that I'm just savouring and pottering along with Birkin. And the pattern I haven't got on me, but I have talked extensively about it before. The other one that I'm making as well, the next one I'm making, is called the Fairy Bouquet. And I have made a lot of progress on this. However, it's easy to do because it's almost a bulky knit, actually. It's an Aran, unspun Aran, and it is, if you can see that, unspun Aran. It's very heavy, very thick. It's a gorgeous pattern. I'm not sure if you can see that. So it's a top down round yoke knit. The sleeves have an interesting run on them. I did get sick of doing it. It got quite hard. My sight was bad, so I only did 3, and you're actually supposed to do it all the way down, but it actually looks quite nice. Again, I did no decreasing, and quick cast off, nice twisted rib. Fairy Bouquet, I'm enjoying that. So I have one sleeve, I just put the needles on yesterday, one sleeve ready to go. It's super thick, so it's going to be super warm, and I do run hot, as I think I've told many times, so I'm not sure when I'll be wearing it, but it'll be, I think, probably going to the mountains for a picnic during winter, which we often do. You know, we take the dogs and the kids for a run out to the mountains, so this will be for that. But it is lovely. I'm hoping that the wool will open out a bit when it's blocked, because it's quite, well, it is actually softening with handling, which is nice to, because it was almost like that thick blanket feeling, but it is softening with handling. So yeah, I've only got one sleeve to go on that. It's very quick, so I sort of imagine that will not be far from done. Which Stuart will be pleased about, because there's so many projects in my project bag in the lounge, and they're all huge. You know, when they get really big, they take a lot of space. So, you know, when I go back, boy, this is hot now too, sorry. So when they boil down to small projects again, Stuart will be happy. Now the Fairy Bouquet is, let me see if I can find who the person is. No, but that's okay. I'll link them down the bottom, so you'll be able to find out who the designer is. I'm sorry, it's been a month, and that's all the information you're going to get about those. So I have talked about them quite a bit. So that's my 2 whips. I have procrastination. I don't know how many evenings I've sat and just stared at my knitting basket going, shall I do that? Shall I pick that up? Oh, I don't know, I'd really like to cast that on. No, don't cast that on. Yeah, oh yeah, but you really want to make that. And I think there's just so much choice. You know, we're really lucky with things like Ravelry and friends sharing patterns, not sharing as in, but friends sharing, giving us links to new patterns and so much, so much. And I have, over this year, I have spent considerable amount of money on wool, which is something new for me. Normally I would buy wool, knit one garment, and buy more wool, knit one garment, and just be left with leftovers. But I seem to now have discovered the beatitudes of collecting wool. I'll have to, yeah, I'm not sure. We live in a very small house with very little storage, so I'm going to have to stop that. I'm just going to have to knit what I've got at the moment. So I've got so minutes, but what that does is causes this procrastination, because I see all these unfinished jobs, and it's just, well, not jobs, all these unfinished projects that I want to do. Procrastination. But I haven't had the headspace either to learn. Learning learning a new pattern, or is quite challenging, and that's a great segue into what I wanted to talk about around mental health, is how we learn, and so that if you have an understanding of how you learn, it can help you in your future. So hence, I can't do the fancy titles and things, so hence this is our psychological session. So how we learn, we have 100 billion neurons in our brain when we're born. We also have 100 billion neurons when we die, give or take a few that we kill along the way, but generally the same. The difference between the two brains, the newborn brain and our adult brain, is the connections between the neurons. So they're the bits that make up the grey matter in our brain. They're the bits that add the connections and add our learning. So every time we learn, we make a connection from one neuron to another to another. So that's how we learn. That's the sort of normal process. So one of the interesting things about that is, so for example, when a baby is born and it learns to say mum, so say it's got 5 neurons, and then it says mum, so it goes ma, ma, and mum will sit over and say, oh, good boy, mum, you're saying mum, so it goes ma, ma, and every time it does it, it connects those 5 neurons together. Eventually, after a bit of practice and going round and round and round, those connections between those 5 neurons become stronger and stronger and stronger. And what happens is what we call myelination, where and it's kind of like a hose, a plastic hose coating that coats those connections between those 5 neurons, and it makes them so super fast that we don't even think about it. So it's like mum, you say mum, and you don't have to think, oh, I better connect those 5 neurons. It just happens, and it becomes faster and faster and faster. So that's kind of what happens. We get myelination, which is the sheath that covers those neurons and makes them into motorways, so super fast. And we can probably all relate to something like when we all learnt to drive. If you learnt to drive, or learning to knit, and this is exactly why I'm bringing it into the knitting one. So if you're learning to drive, you put your clutch in, you're connecting some neurons, you put your brake in, you're connecting some neurons, you change the gears, you're connecting some neurons, and eventually after a whole lot of bunny hops and practice, those neurons become so fast, and then they become myelinated, become a super fast motorway, and then you're driving home without even thinking about how you drive. And that's the same with knitting. When you see somebody in the movies in the dark sitting there knitting, that's those neurons have become so myelinated that they can do that over and over again just with these motorways. That's wonderful. That's how we learn. And by knowing that, when you want to learn a new skill, what you've got to do is recognise that you have to connect each of those neurons first, and then strengthen them, and strengthen and keep practicing until they are so fast, myelinated, that you don't have to think about them. There lies the challenge, however, because what happens is if we are stressed, say for example, we've learnt another way of doing things. So we've learnt the first way to do it, it's myelinated, it's become a motorway, it's really strong. But we then learn a different way of doing it. So say for knitting it would be, say you've done continental and all of a sudden you want to learn the English style or you want to do the other way around. So I'm a flicker. Maybe I want to learn the continental with a picker one. So I've learnt flicking all the time. And I just do it without even thinking. Myelination, done. I want to learn continental, so I have to practice. So I've got to reconnect different neurons to learn how to do it. So I've got to practice it to connect those neurons, practice, and eventually, hopefully, with practice, and that's not one of my strongest points, that then becomes myelinated. And what happens is that becomes your new motorway, and the old motorway, which is your flicking, becomes an empty void motorway that has tumbleweed flowing down it. It never goes away. That motorway will always be there, but you can now start using this new motorway going round and round and round. I hope you're getting this. The challenge is, and this is, we all will know this, is when we are stressed, our brain likes to take the fastest and quickest way to save energy in preparation for fight, flight and freeze. So it will go back to our old motorway because that's the quickest one. It's the fastest. It's the first one we learn, and it's the fastest. So when we are knitting and we're doing really well with our continental, yes, we're doing really well. We get home one day from work, we've had a hard day at work and we're really tired. And we think, I just want to do some knitting and just, chill. So you get it out, you start doing your continental, you keep getting your flicking and you're trying to do your picking and your flicking and then you get really angry with yourself and I just can't be bothered and put it down. That's because your brain is trying to go back to the original myelinated circuit of flicking. So, I hope this is helpful stuff. I do tell a story about this when I teach this in classes, and it is that when my children, who are, facing 40 now, so I'm talking years ago, when they first started school, when they were 5, my life was pretty tough. I had a disastrous year. All sorts of things happened. Life, just big life events happened. I was so stressed. And they started school. So for a year, they were going to school and I was trying to manage all this stuff and them going to school. A year later, I sort of kind of got my shit together and I was starting to come right. And then one day I watched the kids come home from school and they got out of the car and they walked inside and they dumped their school bags just in the hall and then just walked away. And I thought, hang on a minute, that's not right. They need to be putting the lunchbox out and putting their school box away. And so I thought, no, that's not right. So I said, right, from now on, you're going to put your lunchbox away, put your homework on the table and put your school bag away. And so, yeah, okay. So they started doing it. But just when things got stressed again, they would go back to the old ways, but they really tried, and I had to be onto it and get them to build the new motorways. Now, why I'm telling you that story is the interesting thing is 40 years later, and it's okay for me to say this because my daughter teaches this with me and I talk about this regularly and it's about her, so I'm telling her story or my story. 40 years later or 35 years later, when my daughter gets stressed, the first thing she does when she gets home from work is she dumps all the stuff at the back door, on the table, and just walks in. It's interesting. 35 years later, and when she's stressed, she still does I let that happen, but it wasn't, it was because of life events. What happened 35 years ago still crops up. So if you are stressed, be kind on yourself and understand that sometimes our brain goes back to the old way, not the new way. And it's normal. This is normal stuff. Your brain is deciding that it needs to save energy in preparation for fight, flight and freeze. So it drops back to its original learnings because the other ones are new and harder to practice on. So how that relates to knitting, obviously, if you're learning a new skill, and my fairy bouquet is a perfect example, the pattern down the side, something I'd never done before. It was really interesting actually. So it had twisted rib, and then you would do 3 stitches. You would take them off and put them on a cable needle and wind your wool around the bottom, wind your wool around so the cable needle would be at the top and the 3 stitches would be on the cable needle. You would wind the wool around there twice and then slip those stitches back, so that you had kind of like it looked like only straw that had been held together with a bale of straw that held together with some rope. Totally new stitched for me, and hence why I have not finished it all the way down the sleeve, because I just could not connect those new neurons, that new learning, enough to get it so that it would just naturally happen. I had to follow the pattern constantly, almost every stitch. It was like, what do I do now again? What do I do now again? I just could not create that new learning. And that, because last month was so for me, that's what happened. So there we go. That's, I hope, really interesting for you. So if you have a new skill to learn, the idea is to start very slowly, ensure that you connect those myelinations, the neurons together correctly, and then keep doing it and practice it until it becomes myelinated and it's so strong it's a motorway that goes boom. But be kind on yourself if when you're stressed you drop back to the old one. Excuse me. We've all said things like, oh God, I just sound like my mother. Oh, I sound like my mother. Same thing. That's exactly what happens. I'll just have a drink. Just good old water today. I've discovered a new asthma medication, and I don't have quite the throat troubles I've been having, which has been fantastic. But I've just recognised now with that. So, knitting. So, those are my whips. Oh, mohair. And that's my FOs. So, what I want to do now is, I have no idea, I keep chipping and changing, but I made one of these, what's it called, Weekender Slipover? Petite Knits Weekender Slipover in cream, and oh my gosh, I just love it. It's the easiest thing to wear. You can just slip it over everything. So I think I'll make another one. I'm not one for making two of one same thing, but it is so good and so versatile that is my next plan, is to make another one of those. I do have some leftover wool, burgundy, somewhere, vintage skeins wool, but I will talk more about it if and when I start it. Hence the if. The other one that I'd really like to make is this. It is called, what's it called? Gosh. It's quite popular. Everyone's making it at the moment. And, oh, there it is there. It's the Bandana Cowl by, should have done this, it's Pearl Soho. So Pearl Soho's Bandana Cowl. And I just love the thought of, I have leftover wool. Oh, it's not wool, it's alpaca. Leftover alpaca from a sleeveless top that I made, a petite knit one, it's just like butter. And it's one of those ones that, well, you do want to do this, you do. So I figured, and I've got quite a bit left. I think there'll be enough. So this is Zsqw, 100% alpaca. 8 ply, 10 ply, 12 ply. So it won't take much to knit. I bought this as someone was getting as a stock de-stash at a knitting retreat. So I'm pretty sure that's what I'll cast on, because that'll be a real easy knit. I'm actually doing a little bit of travel next weekend. I'm going back over to Australia. Sounds like I do that a lot, and yes, I have recently. My baby, my youngest grandson, or youngest grandchild, turns 1, and I can't miss that. So I'm going over to Australia on Friday, next Friday, just for a long weekend. I'll be back late Monday, that awful midnight flight Monday. So I'll be able to spend some special time with my grandchildren over there. My son-in-law and my daughter are coming with me, and my son-in-law has never been to Sydney, so I'm sure we'll do a few of the sites as well. I know Sydney quite well. I've been so many times. It's actually one of my favourite cities. But what Kushle has booked us in to do is I don't know if you know Sydney, but the tower is the outside walk, the viewing platform on the top of the tower. So Keith and I are doing that. She's got a fear of heights, so she won't. So yeah, wish me luck. But I do like to do those sort of slightly very safety conscious but experiences. So that's what I'm doing. But there'll be some nice knitting time. Obviously, I can't take my big fairy bouquet on the plane because you can imagine it. Whoever I'm sitting with is just going to get annoyed. So I think that's why I will cast on that bandana cowl. Quite looking forward to that, actually. That's quite cool. The other thing I want to do is I love fingerless gloves. I've only got 2 pair, but I wear them all winter because I've got chronic osteoarthritis throughout my body, and my neck, my hips, my back, my knees, and my hands, and my thumbs are really, really bad. So sometimes I just throb with it. This isn't a wah-wah party, it is just reality. One of the things that I've discovered that works really well is, and this isn't the right one, this is those elasticated gloves. They really help. So I've got some natural arthritis. It's like deep heat. It's a herbal. I like herbal ones because there's no all sorts of preservatives and colours and awful, horrible, scary stuff in it. So a friend's made it, and it smells just like deep heat. It's beautiful, and I rub that all over my fingers and hands, and I put these on overnight, and my hands are pretty good for the next 2-3, it lasts about 2 or 3 weeks. So I just have to sleep in them 1 or 2 nights. But sometimes when it's really bad, and at the moment it is, I will put these on to knit with, and it just holds everything all together firmly so that I'm not really bending them all around. So yeah, just another little health tip. If you do stuff with arthritis, I have found that works quite well. I lavish this, it's a natural deep heat, but you could use something like deep heat or some sort of, what's the tiger one? Tiger balm, I think it's called. Something like that all over my joints, and then I put these on and I sleep in them overnight. So I thought I would knit myself a few more pairs of fingerless gloves, because as I've got older, I've recognised the real need, for things like that, for to manage my arthritis. I don't actually like gloves. I do like to be able to use my fingers. So that's also another plan, is fingerless gloves. I'm just going to use bits that I've got left over, which will be quite nice because then I can I can matchy what I'm wearing with my gloves. So that'll be nice. And the last thing I want to cast on itis again is, I bought this when I was in Sydney a few times ago. I bought it in I can't remember the name of the suburb now, but it's not far from Wollongong, and the shop was called Finzar, and I really liked this. It's not lace weight. I'd say it's a 3-ply probably. So it's very fine, but I'm going to knit it with quite chunky needles. I'm just going to make up a pattern. I'm going to knit with quite chunky needles. I'm going to knit a shawl starting with the back and just going so that it fades down to these colours. It's going to be one of those, I guess what I'm needing at the moment is knitting where I just don't have to think. I don't have to learn. No more neuron connections that I need to make. Let's just use these whole neuron connections and yeah, make things easier for me so that when I do get a bit stressed, I'm not getting frustrated. Yeah. So I have made contact with, or she actually made contact with me. There's a podcaster, a new podcaster. I think she's done about 6 podcasts now, called Naze Knits, Naze, and her name is Sam. And Sam is, she's a has a disability and she is wheelchair bound. She doesn't use her wheelchair at home, but she does wear it out. You wear it, you don't wear wheelchairs, use it out. And her and I have connected, obviously, around our disabilities and knitting. And we're both really passionate about accessibility for people with challenges, and whether that be mental health accessibility, mobility accessibility, size inclusiveness accessibility, all of those sorts of things. So we're both really passionate about that, and we want to try and work together and do something around that, but we're not sure what, whether it be a podcast particularly around that, or I don't know. We've just connected and said, we're both passionate about this and let's try and work something together. But Sam's just had surgery, so she's just recovering. I've just had a month and I'm recovering, so I'm sure we'll connect. I'm not sure if you're watching this, Sam, but hi. It's been lovely to connect with you. And I think we'll, be able to do something there. Just when I'm travelling, accessibility is such a bane to people's lives. And more so if you've got challenges. I have just been fighting with more mo here. Gosh, the Ministry of Primary Industries and the government and Australia's Department of Forestry and Fisheries and Forestry, I think, called DEF, because to take my guide dog over to Australia. So the last 2 times I've been, I haven't taken Kenzie because it's just too hard. It's $700 plus for 4. She has to have 4 vet checks, a whole lot of medication, $700 for that. I have to stay in Auckland. That's another motel problem. I can't take food through with me, so I have nothing to feed her when I get to Auckland. The paperwork is, and I'm not exaggerating, it's a whack of paperwork that you just have to fill in. It's ridiculous. Well, it's more than ridiculous. It's discrimination, and it's so upsetting. So I have also made connections with another lady with the same issue. She's got a guide dog and wants to travel to Australia and says the same thing. So that's something that we're working on now to try and change that, so that there's some way we can get to Australia and back. But one of the reasons I got my guide dog is so that I have some. Is this backwards? No, it's not. Oh, forgive me. So that I have some freedom, so that I can be independent, so that I can go and see my grandkids over in Australia. And I can't. Well, I can, but it's just too hard. It's in the too hard basket. So that's my beef at the moment. I've really been fighting with that. I've written to the Prime Minister and all sorts of MPs and just the Disability Commission, and I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight. So that's where that's at the moment. I don't even know where I was going with that. I should be able to take it to Australia. Anyway. Exciting news, really exciting news. I'll keep playing with my hair because it's wet. I've washed it before, sorry. We're having a retreat. So our knitting group meets once a month, and we also have a small sort of sister group of that meets weekly. And we talked about having a retreat because we're in the lower North Island. There's a wonderful retreat up north. There's retreats down south. There's nothing really close and handy to us. And so I thought, well, let's just organise it. Let's get one under our belt and see how we go. So we've put it together. I've got 25 people on the list, which is really exciting. And we're just going to have, there's a huge Fibre Fest, Capital Fibre Fest in Wellington on the 1st of July. And we're going to have ours 1st of July night and 2nd of July. So if you're local and or travelling around and you could are going to the Fibre Fest and or want to come to our retreat, I haven't got the costs yet for it because I've applied for grants. We're going to try and keep it as low cost as possible because you might want to spend all your money at the Fibre Fest, of course. So it's a knit and natter night in front of the fireside, and a dinner together on Friday night. I'm hoping to have a speaker to that, and we'll have some fun games. So to bring a wrapped gift, nothing over the value of $15. Think, clear your stash out or something. And then on the Sunday, we're going to have some workshops, things like look good, feel good, know your shape and your colours, colours, what else? We're hoping to do some wool dyeing, and I thought I'd do this mental health talk around knitting, get a little bit more into depth around that, and maybe the history of knitting. So lots of exciting things happening. I'm really excited. So that's Saturday the 1st of July and Sunday the 2nd. It's in Masterton. If you want to contact me, just contact me by emailing blindandknitting, all one word or lowercase, at gmail.com. So that's blindandknitting@gmail.com. And yeah, you're welcome to pop your name down. So really exciting. We'll get the first one under our belt and see how we go, and we might be able to make it a regular thing. I think I've talked enough. I think I have cleared the stack of everything. I hope everyone's had a great time. I had a lovely Mother's Day. We went and had all of us mothers in my family, so it was just mothers and daughters. Went and had high tea, and I got a lovely gift from my daughter, which is their wedding photo with the kids in. I don't know if you can see that, as a gift for Mother's Day, so I'm looking forward to putting that up. And it was just special spending time. We had fun quizzes, like we had a quiz where it was who did such and such in 2004, who did this funny thing, and and it was we had to guess which family member had done which, and then we had guessed the child's mother, famous child's mother. So it was fun. Yeah, so really enjoyed that. I'm done. Yeah, hope you've enjoyed this. I'll look forward to doing my next one. I'll have done a trip to Aussie again, and hopefully have a bandana to wear, and maybe fairy bouquet. Probably not the Birkin, but you never know. Yeah, be a good time, be a good person, enjoy, be a good week is what I usually say, because you have control to a degree. So be a good week, and catch you next time. Bye.